Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Gaia and I have just recently graduated from Nottingham Trent University in Psychology with Criminology. Now, over the last 4 years at NTU, I've spent a lot of time studying, a lot of time crying, and more specifically, a lot of time studying and crying in cafes. So today I thought, why not? Why don't we rank those study cafes? We're going to rank them based on the caffeine, the plug sockets, and the overall good vibes. Quite frankly, if they have none of these, they can leave. Last week I ranked all of my university modules, so if you haven't had a chance to watch that yet, go watch it. I'll link the video above. Nottingham as a city has loads of study cafes, so today I'll only be ranking some of the cafes I've actually studied in. These are going to be a mix of NTU owned cafes and independent Nottingham ones. I've also just realised you can see my Kiwi costume in the corner of the frame. Wow. Oh, I don't even know how to explain this. I basically went to a Harry Styles concert back in June dressed as a Kiwi. But yeah, we're just gonna leave that there. We don't have enough time to explain that today. So if you're looking forward to this video, make sure to go smash that like button right now. And if you're new here, why don't you click that subscribe button as well. On this channel, we do university advice, student vlogs and lifestyle. So there's something for everyone and I'd love if you join the family. Okay, so as always, this is what the tier ranking system looks like. First off, you've got at the top, if God was a study space. So if I put a study space in this category, then these study spaces are the creme de la creme. You know, walls are heavenly, I'd happily live in it. We stan.
Oh, beautiful.
It probably has all of the plug sockets and caffeine I need in the world, and quite frankly, studying in the study space makes the tears of my dissertation worth it, if you know what I mean. Next you've got, I like this place a latte. So these study cafes just radiate the energy of good times, good vibes, good price.
I like it a lot.
It's not God tier, but I still really like it. It's probably one of the ones that is up there in my go-to study spaces around campus. Next up, we are moving down to overpriced, like my degree. Things are getting too real. So basically, the study cafe is nice, but the price isn't. Looking back, it probably broke my bank a couple of times, probably a lot of times, but it's worth it for the aesthetic. Or at least I'll just keep telling myself that.
Cause she broke, homie.
I pretty much had to sell a kidney on the black market for a latte, you know? But the sacrifice was worth it. Oh, what am I thinking?
Let me borrow $20.
Next up, we have Basic AF. So this is the Fiat 500 of study cafes. Nothing special, there's no flavour. It's like if you ordered plain at Nando's. It's well and truly basic. This category is for the meh cafes, you know, there's just no
Spice.
So now into the bottom of the tier ranking system, we've got come here if I'm desperate. I feel like this is quite self-explanatory. If a study cafe is in this category, then I probably dragged myself there and thought to myself,
I'm desperate.
let's face it, I'd probably come here if all of my other favourite study spaces were full and I had no choice but to step foot in this place. Now the last category for today is my soul dies quicker here than my laptop. So this category is just pure miserable vibes, you know, espresso, more like depresso. Oh god, that was awful, Gaia. The carpet here is probably full of student tears and not even the free Wi-Fi could make me stay here, even though let's face it, there probably isn't any anyway. Just quite simply avoid at all costs. God, I feel like this sounds so savage. Like, I promise you all the study cafes are good, okay? We've got to have a bottom category, okay? Okay, so first off, we have the City Student Union. It's probably one of the main study spaces I chose during my undergraduate degree. It has plugs. The plugs actually work too, which, as you'll find during this tier ranking video, not all the plugs in NTU study spaces actually work, as I had to find out the hard way. It has really nice seating. It also has a lovely cafe too. They do lots of deli options at that cafe. Coffee's really great. From memory, they do like a deal on Fridays where the coffee's cheap. I think it's like £1, which is quite decent when you're a broke student like me. The lady who runs it as well is just so cute. The only downside to it is that it can get a bit noisy since it is obviously an area where students also go just to chill. There have been times where like I've just been trying to study and finish an essay and you'll have a few lads upstairs getting really rowdy, which is a shame because it is just such a lovely open space. It's also great if you are the type of person who likes a bit of eye candy in front of them when you're studying, as you'll have lots of gym lads walking in and out of the gym, as that is also inside the SU. That is not to say that was the case for me, but I'm just saying for you lot out there who doesn't love a nice distraction while you're doing your dissertation. So for those reasons, God, I feel like I said that so aggressively. So I'm going to put it in, oh, I don't know actually. No, actually, why am I questioning myself? It's gonna start off strong. We're gonna put it in If God Was a Study Space. I love the SU. Why did I question myself? Next, following the theme of student unions, we have Clifton SU. So I've only been here a handful of times, and oh, not gonna lie, if you do compare it to the city SU, I don't know, something's just missing. Don't get me wrong, it is still an amazing place if you want to go for, I guess, drinks out with your mates. But I don't know, I think I just prefer the city SU layout. I think the Clifton one is a little smaller, but it does have plug sockets. It has food and comfy seats like the city campus. Yeah, considering I am a city girl through and through, and let's face it, I'd probably only go to this SU if I was actually on Clifton for the day. I'm unfortunately gonna have to put it in the, I can't even find the picture. Where is the picture? Oh, there it is, found it. Fortunately, gonna have to put it in Come Here If I'm Desperate, which sounds really bad. It makes it sound like the Clifton SU's awful. It's not. It's just, like I said, the fact that I am mostly based on city, and there's loads of study spaces on city campus, as you'll realise through this video, so it kind of makes no sense for me to go to Clifton and study there unless I'm there for something else, but that's it. That's just why it fits in the Come Here If I'm Desperate, just because there are normally so many other study spaces on city that I can go to. God, I'm gonna have all the Clifton students coming for me. Next up we have Boots Library. So this has a special place in my heart. It's big. God, that sounds weird. That is not the reason why it has a special place in my heart. Gaia, keep it PG. Anyway, it has lots of different study spaces, from single cubed working spaces to study rooms. It's open 24/7. It has a Starbucks, which I think is just pretty much the best thing about it. You know, it's great if you need some caffeine just to get through your dissertation. It's also a good excuse for a break if you've been staring at your computer screen for too long, just to, you know, nip downstairs and grab yourself a latte. It is a little pricey, but I will let it go. Who doesn't love having a Starbucks in their library? The only issue is the plug sockets don't always work. Especially in my case, I can never seem to find a plug socket that works in Boots Library. Kind of like Russian roulette, where I sit myself down in a study cube and plug in my laptop. Will it charge? Will it not? Most of the time it won't, as evident in my 24-hour library challenge video. We love plug sockets that don't work. Where am I going? I have a table that has plugs. I love this library, but they need to add more plug sockets. It is also really hard to get a seat in Boots Library. It's like the Hunger Games. If you want to get a seat in Boots Library, it's impossible unless you obviously go at a time when other students aren't there, or expect there to literally be like no seats when you arrive there. However, despite all that, it still does have, you know, like I said, a special place in my heart. So I'm gonna definitely be putting it in If God Was a Study Space. Next up we have Boots Garden, which you can access through level 4 on the top of Boots Garden. It's honestly gorgeous during the September? No, it's not. It's gorgeous during the summer. Perfect if you want to romanticize your studying or simply have a place on campus to chill with friends. I love it. I kind of wish, looking back, I'd spent more time up there, just because it is one of the nicer places on city campus. That's also like a hidden gem. It is actually quite quiet up there. A lot of students don't always know how to get to it. The only problem, and this might be why it's quite quiet, is that it doesn't have plug sockets, so you can't spend all day up there, and also most of it is actually like open. There's only a little bit that's sheltered, so you can't exactly sit there in like torrential rain or like thunderstorms. Yeah, especially thunderstorms, please don't do that. But yeah, overall I do really like this place, so I'm going to be putting it in I like this place a latte. Next up we have the NTU Study Pods. I don't know if they have a proper name, but that's just what I'm going to call them. They're these pods that you can find around all of the NTU campuses that you can sit in and study or chill with friends. From the outside they look really nice, but personally I'm not a fan, but that's only because I've actually sat in them and experienced them. They have this like metal or like hard seating all around, so it's not the most comfortable. It's like nope. And there's no plug sockets, so you can't really sit in there for long. Also in summer they're unbearable to sit in, obviously because of the heat penetrating through the glass window that like encapsulates you. God, I feel like this sounds so fancy. So for that reason, or for all those reasons really, I'm gonna have to let it start off the category of my soul dies quicker here than my laptop. Oh, I feel so bad. Hopefully there's nothing else that joins that category, because I feel like that's such a savage category looking back now. I feel so bad. I'm sorry, NTU Study Pods. Next up we have the Newton Building study spaces. So inside Newton Building on City Campus, you'll find lots of different study spaces. Some with computers, some with booths, and some with just a table and chairs. From my experience, you have a really good chance of getting a seat in one of these areas, as it's not normally one of the top locations that people go to study in, like Boots Library or the SU. It's okay. Personally, I think it's really nice with the big open space that is the Newton Building. I think it can get a little noisy at times when students are walking in and out of lecture halls. For some people, I'm sure that's completely fine, but for me, I personally prefer a little bit of like a buzz. You know, nothing too rowdy, but also nothing silent. You know, I like to kind of meet in the middle. I'm also not sure how I feel about like how open it is. Like for me, I like to kind of be tucked away into like a cube, whereas some of the study spaces are like kind of dotted in the middle of like a massive open space in Newton, and for me, I just wouldn't want that feeling of someone's always looking over your shoulder and looking at what you're doing. So as it isn't one of the first places I think of when I want to study somewhere, I'm unfortunately gonna have to put it in come here if I'm desperate. I couldn't actually find a photo, by the way, of the different study spaces, so I've got a picture of Newton Building. I'm sure if you're an NTU student watching this, you probably know what I mean by the Newton Building, like various study spaces. So next we have Goldsmiths Cafe. Now this is next to Chaucer Building on City Campus. I literally love this place. It's still a relatively new cafe. It didn't actually exist when I first moved to NTU back in 2018. It used to be a university bookstore, kind of like our own version of Waterstones. Fun fact. I'm not complaining though, as Goldsmiths Cafe is great and it is perfect if you also again want to romanticize your study life. It has fairy lights and like hanging greenery everywhere. It's just really beautiful. Also the seats are really comfy and aesthetic. Even though it is pretty, it's also never like super busy, so you're definitely bound to get a seat. They have plug sockets too. It just gives off the vibe of like a typical study like bar, like that kind of atmosphere you get in like a Starbucks coffee shop. As it is a cafe, it obviously also sells food. Off the top of my head, I can't remember exactly what they sell, but I think it's along the lines of like wraps, you know, coffee, that kind of thing. I think they also do a few like pastries. So Goldsmiths Cafe is definitely going to go in I like this place a latte, because it is up there with one of the options I would choose if I were thinking about where I'd want to study on campus. Next up we have Bonnington Cafe. So this is a cafe inside Bonnington Art Gallery where all the NTU art and design students study. But by the way, you don't need to be an art student to study in this cafe. It's open to everyone. They also sell food, again things like wraps, pastries. I think they actually do like meal deals too, so you can pick up like a sandwich, your choice of crisp, and a drink for like under $5, which I think is really good. You'll also actually find a lot of staff choose to work in this cafe, which is quite interesting. It's quite a nice diverse environment, not just student heavy. My problem though is the fact that it doesn't have plug sockets, or at least I haven't found any. Also Bonnington Cafe isn't the biggest cafe, so you might not always get a seat. Can also get a bit noisy too, with students walking back and forth, you know, to lectures. So I don't know which one I'm going to put it in, because it is still really good. I'm going to have to put it in basic AF, which I feel like looking back now, all of the names, or a lot of the names on this tier ranking system sounds so savage. Just remember, as I said before, all of these study cafes are really good. I'm just being super picky. And I think it's mostly because of the fact that I do a lot of my work on my laptops. So when it comes to my study cafe preferences, I need to work in a place that has good Wi-Fi and plug sockets. Next up we have Pavilion, which is a space based in Clifton campus. It's probably the main building you think of when you think of Clifton campus. It's that big one in the middle of like, I don't know what to call it, but it's like the square, like the big open space. It's very similar to City SU regarding seating and the chill areas. It has several study booths and tables in it, which is great, but unfortunately it's very hard to get one, at least from my experience. If you want to get a good vibe of what Pavilion is like, go watch my last week NTU video. I spent a lot of my time in the Pavilion. I'll link it above. It has several food bars inside, including in the refectory, which is kind of like an open like food hall space inside the Pavilion, which is very popular among students. It also has plug sockets in there, which is great. Gotta love a plug socket. God, I sound really sad. I do really like it, but I don't think it would go in if God was a study space. Equally, I don't think I could say it's basic AF because it's not, and it's definitely not overpriced. So I'm probably gonna have to put it in I like it a latte. Yeah, I like it a latte. Keeping on the Clifton theme, next up we have Clifton Library. So I've only been to Clifton Library a few times, maybe even twice. It's very similar to Boots Library, but it's a lot smaller, obviously because Clifton campus has less students than City campus. This might sound a little embarrassing, but even though it is very much smaller than Boots Library, I might have got lost in it a few times. But yeah, it has pretty much the same stuff as Boots Library. It has different study tables, it has the individual cubes. It doesn't have, though, the scary barriers that you get in Boots Library. For anyone who's watching this video who is current NTU student, specifically those who have actually been in Boots Library, you'll get what I mean. Basically, when you walk into Boots Library, there are these barriers that you have to scan your student card on to like walk through, and if you don't have your student card, you then have to face the wrath of the librarians who are sat at the reception desk and pray that they'll let you through. But basically, they don't have that in Clifton Library, as I've realised. You can just walk straight in and out, which is something that City campus students would literally dream of. Unfortunately, I am gonna have to put Clifton Library in basic AF. God, I feel like I'm gonna get so much hate from Clifton students. I'm sorry. Just because I think Boots Library is just so much better. And also Clifton Library doesn't have a Starbucks. So even though technically you could say surely having a Starbucks makes you more basic. Next up we have Inn Costa, or at least that's what I like to call it. It's basically a Costa inside the Inn that's on City campus. It's kind of out of the way, to the point that I think some people don't even really realise it's there. It's a very quiet study space. It has plug sockets and Wi-Fi. The only downside to it is that it's, for some reason, I think a term time Costa, so it's only open certain days and certain times of the year. Also, a lot of times I've gone in there, they always seem to have run out of the drink that I like, or even just cups. Like, I remember there was a time I ordered a mango cooler and they gave it me in one of those like hot drink cups, which was strange. Honestly, the amount of stares I got as I was walking around campus with this hot drink cup in the middle of summer. And then it looked even weirder when you actually realised that the hot drink was in fact a cold drink. There's been a few times where I've gone to get my free drink that I get from having a Costa card, but they won't let me have one because they said they don't do the deal there. And they also don't do a lot of the other special deals that Costa does during the year. So when it comes to putting in a category, as it is again another place that I don't really tend to go to unless I obviously do want to just grab a coffee to go, I am gonna put it in come here if I'm desperate. I probably would only study in there if the SU or the library was shut. Keeping on the Costa theme, we have Big Costa, which is obviously another Costa near the Hydrogen Student Accommodation, which is opposite the Royal Concert Hall on City campus. It's out of the way a bit, so students don't always use it, so you're also bound to get a seat. As it's another Costa, it also has plugs and Wi-Fi, but since it's not a uni Costa, it's open all year round, you know, all the normal times, and you get all the regular deals. So I much prefer it to the Inn Costa. I personally also like that it's so open and light, whereas with the Inn Costa, it's a lot darker, which is, I guess, nice for some students if you want that kind of mood lighting, dark vibes while you're doing your dissertation. But for me, I am like a plant, so I need my vitamin C, and that's why I like spaces that have lots of light coming in. As evident, I definitely prefer it to the Inn Costa, so I'm going to put it in I like this place latte. Next up we've got Chaucer Extended Study Lounge. Technically I think it's called Goldsmiths Extended Study Lounge, but I like to call it Chaucer because it's like actually inside Chaucer building. I only actually discovered this place in my last year, which sounds really bad considering I literally used to walk past it every day when I go to my lectures. It used to actually be the old print shop, but it's now a small study lounge. It has mostly computer cubes where you can work individually, and then one or two study tables with like a TV. I guess it's all right. Again, it isn't really my go-to, and there's not really much there considering it is quite small, so I think I'm gonna put it in basic AF. Sorry. Next we have Print Shop Cafe, which used to be the old Global Lounge before they built the new one opposite Newton Building on City Campus. On one side you have all the printing services, all the people behind the desk with the big fancy printers, and then on the other side you have like a cute little cafe. The idea is that you can go in there and study, or alternatively go and sit in the cafe and have a cake while you wait for your printing to finish. Since it's one of the newer study spaces here on campus, it is quite aesthetic with the pastel walls and furniture. However, it is still, in my opinion, relatively basic because there isn't that much seating. And I also personally prefer like higher up tables where, you know, you're sat properly at a desk, you know, you're kind of eye line with your laptop or computer, compared to like a small coffee table where you're kind of hunched over, like desperately trying to type. Unfortunately, I think I'm gonna have to put it in Come Here If I'm Desperate, because it definitely isn't one of the ones that I think of when I'm racking my brain thinking, where do I want to study today? Now, the penultimate study cafe of today's video is 200 Degrees, which is an independent Nottingham coffee shop, or now actually a chain of coffee shops. Very popular among the students and, I guess, to be fair, the entire of Nottingham. Recently, because of how popular they are, they've actually opened a second cafe opposite the Vic Centre, which I actually prefer because the first one is just, don't get me started, it's just impossible to get a seat in since it is so popular. Regardless of which one you go to, both have plug sockets and alright Wi-Fi. I think that's partly because of the fact that so many people are sat in there with computers. I definitely say 200 Degrees is more of a study cafe than a regular cafe. The downside to it, in my opinion, is that it's quite expensive, or at least in my opinion as a broke student. Like, don't get me wrong, I do love studying in there. It's one of my favourite independent coffee shops to go to, but you probably couldn't study here a lot unless you want to break your bank. I mean, if you kept getting lattes here, you'd probably definitely have to sell a limb. Oh, I don't know. I feel like because of that, I feel like I should put it in overpriced like my degree. But then I feel like that just seems so savage considering I do love 200 Degrees. Yeah, I'm just gonna have to go with it. Overpriced like my degree. I'm sorry. Now, last but definitely not least, we have Waterstones Cafe, which is very similar to 200 Degrees in the way that it's an independent coffee shop, and it's also quite pricey. I think it's actually a lot more expensive, so for that I'm definitely putting it in overpriced like my degree, like no doubt. Also, the Wi-Fi is quite shocking in there. I don't know if that was because I just went on a specifically busy day, but like the internet just wouldn't load, which is a shame because I do love Waterstones. I love going in the bookshop itself. I think it's a lot better to go into that study cafe if you just want to study with like handwritten notes and not use a laptop, or you just read a book. And also if you're one of those people that likes to nurse their drinks just because of how pricey the food and drinks are in that cafe. Like, no joke, I remember buying I think it was like an orange juice bottle that was like this small, a few mouthfuls and it's pretty much gone, and that was £3. Now, I'm sorry, but my student loan just can't hack that, okay? So yeah, overpriced like my degree. So there you have it. Those are all the study cafes that I'm going to be ranking today, that are either NTU owned or are Nottingham based ones. A few months back I actually did a study crawl where I hopped between different cafes for the day and studied, which was just a great and fun way to, I guess, spruce up my studying for the day. So if you haven't already seen that and are interested in watching it, I'll link the video above. If you did enjoy watching today's video and you haven't already, go smash that like button right now, and let me also know if you'd like me to film more of these kind of ranking videos in the future. You'll probably notice that I have done back-to-back ranking videos over the last 2 weeks, and that is because I kind of want to do as much NTU stuff as I can before I start Portsmouth, and I have previously done several other NTU themed ranking videos, so I thought this one today would tie into that quite nicely. If you haven't actually seen those NTU ranking videos and would like to watch those, I will link a playlist above which you can go find those videos in. Other than that, I've been Gaia. This has been ranking NTU, I guess, / Nottingham study spaces. This will probably be my last NTU video, or like one of the last NTU videos I do for a while now that I am about to start my masters in Portsmouth, which is quite sad if you think about it. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next week for more content. More exciting content also, I might add, since we are going to be returning to all the study vlogs. I'll see you later. Bye!
Oh,